Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to hopefully give you some new meal ideas and motivate you to cook more for your family. This week I have 3 crockpot recipes to share with you, as well as the rest of the week's dinners, most of which were pretty easy this week. It's been very hot here in Georgia, and I just didn't want to do a lot of standing over the stove or cooking in the oven. So everything is pretty easy. As always, any recipes that I mention will be linked in the description box. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night we had our first crockpot meal of the week, and we just did some cilantro lime chicken tacos. So in my crockpot I have 2 chicken breasts here, and I'm adding in some taco seasoning. This is about equal to 1 packet of taco seasoning, and then I did about 1/4 cup of some cilantro that I diced up, and then the juice from 2 limes, and then about half of a 16-ounce jar of salsa. This is some green salsa that I had, but whatever salsa you want to use, you can. I most of the time use just like a regular red salsa. And then I put a lid on this and let this cook on low for about 5 hours. Then all you have to do is go in and shred this up. I had quite a bit of extra liquid, so you could definitely use like more chicken if you wanted to. I ended up like straining off the liquid and using the liquid to flavor our refried beans for dinner. I just added that to a can of refried beans along with some cheese, and then just some very flavorful refried beans on the side. And then we used some hard shells that I cooked in the air fryer for our tacos. We had cheese and some chunky salsa and sour cream and lettuce. I don't do chicken tacos very often. They are not my family's favorite. They do enjoy it, but they prefer like chicken quesadillas or something. But for some reason, I just really wanted some chicken tacos. Saturday night's dinner was a super simple one that me and Andy have made for years. Just some chicken tender wraps. I took these crispy chicken strips from Aldi and threw them in the air fryer for about 15 minutes on 400 degrees. They come out nice and crispy, and then you just throw those in a tortilla with whatever toppings you choose. I did some lettuce and tomato and cheddar cheese and ranch. Elijah just did the chicken with some cheese and lettuce, and Lily just had chicken and cheese. And then we just had some barbecue chips on the side. Super simple. A nice, like, not too hot dinner for a very hot summer day. Sunday we tried a new recipe for lemon butter garlic shrimp with angel hair pasta. So I started off by bringing a big pot of salted water to a boil to cook up 8 ounces of angel hair pasta. Angel hair pasta only has to then boil for like 4 to 5 minutes. So once it started boiling, that's when I started working on my shrimp. So in a skillet over medium-high heat, I added 1 stick of butter. And then once that was melted, I stirred in some garlic powder, about a teaspoon of that, and just let that cook for about like 30 seconds. And then I'm going to add in my shrimp. This is 1 pound of shrimp, peeled, deveined, all that. I buy it from Sam's Club like that. And then I just give it a good rinse to make sure that all the tails and stuff are actually off. Sometimes there'll be like a stray tail in there. So just give it a good rinse and then pat it dry. And then I added it to the skillet, and then I seasoned that up with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then you just want to cook that up in the butter until it is done. Then I stirred in 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and then once that was added in, I stirred in my cooked angel hair pasta. Then you can taste this, see if you need to add any more seasoning. I ended up adding, I think, a little bit more salt and pepper and about another tablespoon of butter. I think I needed to add more butter only because I think I used a little bit too much noodles. What I thought was half a box, I think was actually a little bit more than half a box. When you don't have to use the whole box for a recipe, sometimes I accidentally use too much and then the sauce isn't enough. We served this with a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top and then some lemon wedges, and it was delicious. Everyone loved it. Lily has been weird lately with like seafood and saying she doesn't want it beforehand, and then she's like, oh my goodness, this is so good after every meal. And I'm like, what is wrong with this child? But to go with it, those of us that like zucchini, which is everyone except for Elijah, had some zucchini that I cooked in the air fryer, and he just had some raw broccoli with some ranch on the side. Monday night we had another crock pot meal, and this one I have made before. It is Salisbury steak meatballs. To 3 cups of water, I am adding 3 teaspoons of Knorr beef bouillon, or you could just use 3 cups of beef broth. And then I am adding in 2 packets of beef gravy powder and whisking that in. And then I'm going to whisk in a little splash of Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of ketchup, and then some garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. And just whisk that all together really well. There is no measurements for these seasonings. Even on the original TikTok video that I had found, she doesn't really give measurements besides 2 packets of beef gravy mix and 3 cups of beef broth. And then in my crock pot I have about 2 pounds of meatballs, and to that I added 1 onion that I sliced up, and then I'm using some of this Campbell's Flavor Up in the mushroom flavor because I'm not gonna add in canned mushrooms or anything because my family doesn't really like mushrooms. We just like the flavor of mushrooms. So I just added some of that in, but that's optional. If you don't have it, it'll be fine. And then I poured in that gravy mixture that I made. Then I put a lid on this and let it cook on low. It doesn't take very long because these are just frozen meatballs. I did about 6 hours, I think, on low, but if you do high, it'll be done in 3 hours or 2 hours even. Frozen meatballs don't take very long in the crock pot at all. And then once we were ready to eat, I stirred in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch that I mixed with 2 tablespoons of water so it could thicken up the gravy. And then I just served this over mashed potatoes. It's delicious. Basically tastes just like Salisbury steak, but in meatball form, and it's so easy to make. Tuesday night we had Naan Pizzas. If you saw last week's What's for Dinner, you know I was supposed to make this last week, but our little pieces of naan bread ended up being moldy, so we couldn't make it then. I just take the naan bread, put some sauce on it, cheese, whatever toppings you want, stick it in the oven on 425 for 10 to 15 minutes until it gets as crispy as you want it. It doesn't get super crispy. If you do want it super crispy, you can cook it for 5 minutes first without the toppings on, and then it'll get a little bit crispier, and then you can add the toppings on. To go with it, we just had some salad, and of course Lily doesn't like salad, so she just had some fresh veggies on the side. Wednesday night we had some big old salads. I was looking at a recipe on Pinterest for Cobb salads, and that's basically where this idea came from, and I was going to use the dressing from that, but I ended up being lazy and not wanting to make it. But we had chicken that I made in the air fryer, bacon, hard-boiled egg, avocado, cucumber, tomatoes, carrots, cheese, dressing, blue cheese, croutons. I think that is it. So Lily doesn't like lettuce, so she eats all of the toppings from the salad. No dressing, no lettuce. And then Elijah likes when I put his lettuce and dressing to the side, and then he can add the toppings as he wants to. Some of the stuff he decides just to eat on the side by itself. Some of the stuff he decides to add to his salad. That way he can customize it the way he wants. I had a little bit of everything and then topped it with some of the Olive Garden Italian dressing since I didn't end up making the dressing like I wanted to. But it turned out delicious. We had a whole homeschool lesson this week on blue cheese because the kids at first said they wanted to try it, and then Lily saw it in the cart and she was like, "Why does it look moldy?" And I couldn't lie to her, so I was like, "Because it's mold." And then we watched multiple videos this week on how blue cheese is made and why it's okay to eat the mold on blue cheese but not mold on bread. But they were turned off from it. They wanted nothing to do with the blue cheese. And finally, the last meal of the week, another crock pot meal. We had some Italian beef sandwiches. So in my crock pot, I have a chuck roast, and then I added in about a cup of water, and then I had about a third of a jar of pepperoncini peppers left and the juice, so I added all of it in there. And then I wanted that water to be beef broth, so I added in some Knorr beef bouillon powder and then 1 package of Italian dressing mix. Put a lid on this, and this cooked on low for about 10 hours. And I am not going to be buying chuck roasts, at least from Sam's Club, for a while now. I still have one in my freezer, but lately every time I cook them, no matter how long I cook it for, and I'm not overcooking it, I've never had an overcooked chuck roast, but in the past they would always just like fall apart, like the fat would fall apart. But lately the fat is just like sticking to the meat. They're super fatty and not wanting to fall apart, and it makes it really hard to shred. I've had to get a knife out and like cut the fat off in order to be able to get to the meaty parts and shred them up, and I'm just like so tired of it. I never had that issue before, even buying them at Sam's Club. Never had that issue with the ones from Kroger or Aldi, so I'm going to try one of theirs. I know it's not an issue with my crock pot, like getting things cooked properly, because I don't have that problem when I cook chicken or even like a big, huge pork loin. I just cooked a huge pork loin the other night, bigger than this chuck roast, and it shredded perfectly fine. But this fatty chuck roast that I've been getting from Sam's Club are just not it. So once I did have it all shredded up, then I put it on some hoagie rolls, topped it with some provolone cheese, and stuck in the air fryer for about 5 minutes to get the bread toasty and the cheese melty. And then on the side of this, we just had some chips and some sliced tomato, fresh veggies, and that was it. They were delicious, even though shredding it was a hassle. It was still really good. It's just like, it frustrates me like so much. But that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. Let me know down below, do you like blue cheese? Have you been having issues with super fatty pieces of chuck roast? Yeah, I love blue cheese and seriously having an issue with the chuck roast. But I hope y'all have a great rest of your weekend and a great week coming up, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!